Today's program: Xiaomi is finally coming to Europe, Audi is bringing back its biggest flop, the government is backtracking on the LEZs, which will ultimately be maintained, and Alfa fans can breathe easy. The brand is set to launch at least 4 new models. Let's talk about a nightmare that keeps the bosses of Porsche, Audi, and many others up at night. This nightmare comes from China, and it's called Xiaomi. Xiaomi is getting ready to land in Europe, and they've brought out the heavy artillery. After their YU7 sedan, which already made everyone sweat, they've just unleashed their new weapon of mass destruction, the YU7 GT, an electric SUV. Now, I know what you're thinking. Another Chinese electric SUV, great. But wait until you see the specs. This 5-meter-long behemoth puts out 1,003 horsepower. It does 0 to 100 in just 2.9 seconds. That's faster than it takes me to say its name, Xiaomi YU7 GT, and it tops out at 300 km/h. But the most humiliating thing for our German friends isn't that. The most humiliating thing is that the Y7 GT shattered the SUV record on the Nürburgring. With a time of 7 minutes, 34 seconds, and some change, it beat the Audi RS Q8 performance. It sent Porsche and its Cayenne back to the drawing board. A manufacturer with less than 4 years in the automotive industry has just taught a lesson to the masters of the field. It's a bit like someone who just discovered soccer nutmegging Messi. But where it really gets scary for the competition is the price. In China, this 1,000 horsepower monster is sold for less than 50,000 euros. So, of course, with European customs taxes, the price will double. That's true, but even at double the price, it's still a massive deal. Compared to an electric Porsche Macan or a Mercedes GLC, which offer 3 times less power for the same price. And the worst part is, they're coming. The big arrival is scheduled for the second half of 2027. They're even preparing a new brand, Sky Nomad, with family SUVs equipped with a range extender capable of going 1,500 km on a single tank. So Xiaomi's arrival in Europe isn't just a new competitor on the market. It's an earthquake. It's like the iPhone arriving to challenge Nokia, and we all know how that ended for Nokia. At Audi, they've decided it's high time to dig out the shovel and pickaxe to resurrect one of the brand's biggest fiascos in history, the Audi A2. For those who were too young or lucky enough to forget, let me refresh your memory. It's 1999, and Audi decides to launch the A2 on paper. It was a technological marvel, a fully aluminum structure, a featherweight of less than 900 kilos, and teardrop aerodynamics to use less fuel than a lighter. But in reality, it was a kind of egg on wheels with strange proportions. The end result was an absolute disaster. Sold at an exorbitant price, the A2 drove customers away in droves. Audi hoped to sell 60,000 per year. They barely managed to sell 176,000 in 6 years, before stopping the disaster in 2005 with an estimated loss of more than €1 billion. And now, 20 years later, someone in the Ingolstadt offices stood up and said, "What if we tried again?" So get ready to welcome the Audi A2 e-tron, scheduled for fall 2026. This new iteration will, of course, be fully electric. Audi promises us that they've learned from their mistakes. The new A2 e-tron should feature a much more muscular design, inspired by modern urban SUVs with sharp lines and a futuristic lighting signature. For now, the camouflage prototypes are racking up the miles. They've been sent to Lapland on frozen lakes to test the battery in polar temperatures. Next, it's off to the wind tunnel, with winds at 300 km/h to refine the aerodynamics. It's all about recapturing that teardrop spirit of the original, with this flowing roofline and the famous tailgate split in two by a small spoiler. Under the floor, this A2 e-tron will ride on the Volkswagen Group's MEB platform, the same one as the ID.3. They're announcing power outputs ranging from 170 to 326 horsepower, and a range that could approach 650 kilometers. It's certainly impressive, but let's not forget the real problem with the first A2, the price. Audi is targeting the premium electric city car market, aiming to compete with the electric Mini, Renault Scenic E-Tech, and new Chinese models. Here's where it gets tricky. Audi makes us pay a premium just for those rings on the grille. If this new A2 e-tron is priced like an apartment in the suburbs, it will meet exactly the same fate as its predecessor. But the question remains, does the world really need the return of the A2, or is it just a misplaced bout of nostalgia from a manufacturer trying to refresh its image? Then, the government has just backtracked on the subsidies and LEZs. They will indeed be maintained. Yet just a few weeks ago, miraculously, Parliament had passed the law to simplify economic life, which meant the removal of subsidies and LEZs. But that was without counting on the wise members of the Constitutional Council. These ladies and gentlemen in robes looked at the text on May 21st, frowned, and said, "We're canceling the removal of subsidies and LEZs." As a result, in the end, the subsidies and LEZs will remain in place. The blow almost landed, and this blow was serious. It was no joke. If you live in Paris or Lyon, the two poster children for the anti-car crackdown, get ready to cry. These two cities enforce the strictest measures. Vehicles classified as Category 3, 4, 5, and unclassified are banned there. That means if you have a diesel from before 2011 or a gasoline car from before 2006, you're not welcome. To give you an idea of the scale of the disaster, we're talking about around 640,000 cars just for these two cities. The government and the environmentalist city councils are selling this to us as a great victory for our lungs. Less nitrogen oxide, fewer fine particles. But for others, it's pure and simple social segregation. As Pierre Chassereau from the Association 40 Million Motorists says, it's a major political mistake. The subsidies and LEZs create a huge divide between those who can afford to buy the latest electric city car for 40,000 euros to go pick up their organic bread, and those who have to keep their old diesel Clio from 2008 because they simply don't have the money to change it. We're in the process of banning citizens from entering cities just because they're not rich enough. It's class-based tolling, plain and simple. Regarding fines, for now, there are very few penalties, simply because they don't have the technical means to catch everyone. But don't be fooled, the noose is tightening. The subsidies and LEZs were saved by a legal technicality, just a simple procedural detail. The Constitutional Council didn't say that the subsidies and LEZs were great. It just said that their removal wasn't in the right legal text. The members of Parliament who oppose it and the motorists' associations are already promising to come back and fight again. The battle is far from over, but for now, that's the reality. If your car doesn't have the right little colored sticker on the windshield, you're asked to stay at home. And finally, get this, it seems that Alfa Romeo has finally found the accelerator pedal. I have to say, a few days ago, things were a bit chaotic. The Stellantis group presented its big Fastlane 2030 plan, almost forgetting to mention Alfa. Panic spread among Alfa fans. People thought the brand was doomed to just play a minor role. And then, a sudden turn of events. In the end, Alfa Romeo will actually launch at least 4 new models. Let's start with the news that will make everyone who ever owned a 147 cry with joy. Alfa Romeo is going to make a real compact again, yes, a C-segment hatchback. Stellantis has confirmed in a press release the arrival of a spiritual successor to the 147 and the Giulietta. It will be built on the new Estella 1 multi-energy platform. That means we'll get electric, of course, but also hybrid. All of this with the famous Corre Sportivo, that sporty heart that has been so sorely missed. But that's not all, because it's 2026 and the world is obsessed with high-riding cars. Alfa Romeo will also release a new compact SUV, codename A4U. This vehicle will slot just above the Tonale. It will be built in Italy on the Estella Medium platform, the same as the future Lancia Gamma. Again, Alfa Romeo promises multiple powertrain options, not just electric, and rumors are already mentioning the name Brera. And what about the Giulia and the Stelvio? Well, these two masterpieces of dynamism were supposed to die and be reborn exclusively as electric. Well, no, forget that. Stellantis has confirmed that the current Giulia and Stelvio will be extended until 2027, and even better, the future generations that follow. They will also be getting hybrid powertrains. There are even rumors that the Quadrifoglio versions, with their wicked 520 horsepower V6, might somehow survive. Finally, to top it all off, the recently launched Junior will get updates to make its mark in the B segment. Let's hope for a facelift on that front end. In the end, it's a real thunderbolt. Stellantis, which seemed to want to relegate Alfa Romeo to the status of a regional brand without ambition, has just given us hope again. It remains to be seen whether the engines and chassis will be worthy of their badge, and if the schedule will be respected. Because at Alfa Romeo, soon can sometimes mean in a decade, or even never. But for now, Alfa enthusiasts can finally breathe. The Serpent of Milan isn't dead, it's just shedding its skin. And finally, join us on our Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook accounts, because tonight at 10:10 p.m., the highly anticipated Ferrari Luce will be unveiled for the first time, the brand's first fully electric car. I'll put the links just below the video, in the description, and in a pinned comment. Thank you all for watching this new video. Don't hesitate to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to make sure you don't miss anything. Ciao.